Okay, fantastic. So would you like me to just start, Christy? Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks. It's my first time to kick it off. So, hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another DFW ATW Connect Friday. First of all, thank you, Michael, for being here with Salesforce, and Christy is going to introduce them in just a second. My name is Paula. I am one of I was going to say team members on the marketing committee, but I chair the marketing committee over at ATW. If you guys don't know, if this is your first one, first of all, welcome. Thank you for being here. And second of all, everyone's automatically muted. Any questions, please just go ahead and put them in the chat. We would love to hear your questions. This is going to be a really fantastic talk. Next Friday's meeting is part 2 of Terry Sullivan's LinkedIn for Success, LinkedIn for Branding. He's back by popular demand, so we're incredibly excited to have him. And first of all, we want to say thank you to all our sponsors. I know that these are different times, and we really appreciate all of them, especially Salesforce, collaborating with us and then learning how to pivot and move forward. So with that, Christy, please take it away and introduce our special guests.
All right, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Christy Bonner. I'm Vice President for DFW ATW, and I'm really happy to introduce our speaker today. I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with Michael for the past several years as we've implemented our own Salesforce solution at my company. Michael is the Area Vice President of the high-tech business at Salesforce, and for more than 2 decades, he has led large revenue-producing divisions for businesses ranging from startups to Fortune 500 companies such as Salesforce and IBM. And today he's going to talk about a really timely topic on building a resilient response during the COVID-19, which I know is all near and dear to all of us. So, and I do want to also thank you, Michael, and for Salesforce, and shout out to Amber Mueller for gaining Salesforce as one of our key sponsors and partners. So with that, Michael, I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll come back at the end for a couple of minutes of Q&A session.
Okay. Do I have controls here, Christy?
Yes, all you. Just made you presenter.
Okay. All right. So let me put this in presentation mode here for you. So thank you, Christy. Appreciate it. It's great to be here today. And Salesforce, obviously, very happy to be a partner with DFW, ATW. So I will talk a little bit about what Salesforce is doing in our world around trying to come up with plans for the future around building a resilient response for COVID-19 and the various phases we see coming around the emergence of this. So this is our roadmap. This isn't intended to be we certainly don't have the corner on the market of knowing all the great things that we should be doing in this time. We're all learning a little bit, I think, as we go along. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about our approach, and certainly I welcome feedback and questions at the end. All right, so if we look at what Salesforce, do you see my screen, Christy? Is that?
Yes, you're all good.
All right, should be locked here. Hang on 1 second. Strange. All right, there we go. Okay, so one of the things that Salesforce is really vested in is this idea of stakeholder theory, which is that we believe that it's important for us to listen to all the stakeholders in our communities. So we spend a lot of time doing a lot of conversations with our customers, our employees, our partners, experts in various fields that are relevant to this crisis, and really the ongoing and the outstanding community in the markets that we serve. So we've used that as a guide for our response. And for those that don't know Salesforce very well, we are a company that's really strongly held beliefs and values that drive our decisions along everything we do. So the core values, as we talk about, you'll see this on our website, you'll see this in all of our presentation and content, is the idea of trust, customer success, innovation, and quality. And this is particularly relevant, obviously, in this time of need around making sure that we're maintaining the health and safety of our employees. We're remaining a very high reliability of our solutions that many companies, businesses of all sizes rely on. And obviously focusing on making sure that every customer of ours has a business continuity plan and they feel confident and feel like we're there for them. Some of the things that we've been thinking about trying to bring to bear as a technology company is just bringing some innovation around how we help people deal with some of the most acute and near-term needs around setting up new processes and new digital environments for responding to the crisis. And so I'll talk a little bit about this towards the end, but we put together some solutions that have helped people to create really dynamic, fast commerce sites, to call centers, to any number of different applications that they've had to create to try to build a work from home process model. And then lastly, equality is always central to what we do, and our whole view of this is how we embrace and help the communities we all live and work in to help those that are most affected. So you'll see that sprinkled throughout this conversation, and I'll talk through many of those points. So if you think about what we're thinking about, we obviously are a believer that we're not going to go back to things being as they were completely. And so this is a reality we all have. So we're thinking about what do we do over this 6 to 9 to 12 month period to create this new normal. And we're doing it with a mindset of, what are the no regrets actions, as we call it today, that would inform a path that would help to make us, have a great response and be in a better place today, but also create some latitude for us to continue to respond and change as this thing starts to become clearer in the coming weeks and months. And then we're thinking about how long-term, how we might enable our organization and certainly help other organizations to better sense change and respond in the future so that we can become more agile and then really be able to respond when the time is right. So as we look at this in a 3-phase manner, and I'm going to go through each one of these. Obviously, as you go further from left to right, there's great clarity around what we've done on stabilization of our business and trying to stabilize the environments that our company, our employees work in and our customers work in. But as we go further out to the right, obviously we've got sort of where we think the puck is going to be, but obviously those are all subject to change, and we're trying to factor those changes in. So you'll see a little bit more clarity as we start, and it'll be a little more theme-based around when we get to how we get back to growing our business. So when we look at stabilization of our company, we look at our own sort of 3 dimensions, which is transparent leadership. How do we further empower our employees during this time? And then ultimately, how do we engage our customers in this world where Salesforce as a company was very centered around physical presence, very much face-to-face type meetings, gatherings, events, and rethinking that entirely. So the first thing we did as a company was set up a crisis management or crisis command center, which basically was some of our key decision makers and leaders setting up a plan and being able to communicate that plan. We use a planning process here at Salesforce that some may have heard about, which is called V2MOM. V2MOM stands for vision, values, methods, obstacles, and measures. You can think of it as sort of a quasi-business plan that we use to basically get collaboration and alignment from our CEO, Mark Benioff, down to the individual contributors of our company around what our visions are for the year and what sort of values that we're going to apply to that vision, and then ultimately establish how we're going to measure our success. Well, obviously in a crisis like this, our vision and our values don't change, but vision certainly changes, and how we look at the methods of achieving that vision and what that vision is and how we measure it change dramatically. So this is something we've worked hard on. This is something, a template that we've shared with a lot of our customers, and certainly can be shared with you folks as well. But we established that as a guidepost for us. And so then from there, we went through a communication plan that was a focus on transparency and relevance. And so that's transpired into a few things. I'll just highlight a couple of things that we're doing. So we have daily communications that come from our senior leadership team that highlight all of the things that we've been doing in that 24-hour period. We highlight some of the successes. So we do want to highlight some of the feel-good stories. We want to highlight some of the stories that keep us a little bit less worried about what's going on around us, and hopefully with some levity. As a leadership team, we're doing a video all-hands call every week that is highlighting a lot of those same themes in a very present way with all of our employees. And that call is set up, really about half of it is set up as scripted and with some guest speakers, but the other half of it is just going through a Q&A with topics that are top of mind for our employee base. So a lot of attention from our leadership to basically communicate widely. Obviously, we're looking at different insights in this time period. We're looking at, the CDC data. We're looking at certainly the well-being and health data of our employees and the effects that that's having on their families. And that's a whole different sort of set of instrumented and analytics that we're looking at. As far as empowering our employees, obviously the first order of business that we looked at was the health and wellness of our teams, making sure they were safe and prioritizing, the programs that would help them be able to, one, work from home, but two, allow them to school their children, take care of their parents or elderly family members, and really define a way forward around that. One of the things we've done is launch some new wellness programs, some of you may have heard of. We started a program called Be Well Together, which was initially launched with our employees and their families in mind. And we had a number of guest speakers, or have a number of guest speakers like Deepak Chopra, Ariana Huffington, a number of sort of thought leaders around areas like meditation, dealing with the emotions of this crisis, deep breathing, whatever it may be. We've since actually opened that up to the general public. We think it's a very valuable resource. I've got, at the end of this presentation, some highlights to where people can go look for that and sign up for it. We've also started a whole new series of virtual webinars that we've launched around leading through change. And these are just small webinars or videos around typical operating challenges we all have, whether it's customer service or how to sell from home or how to market from home, how to deal with the various challenges that we have around health and wellness. So again, all of these are publicly available, and I've got links to all of that in the back of the presentation. So obviously we're looking at that. We're looking at connectability. Much of our workforce was very remote, but we have a lot of people that were office-based. So obviously we had to remote get those connected. And I think the other piece that we've added to this in terms of empowering our employees is obviously provided that extra flexibility. We're looking at how we provide more flexible leave, how do we provide more flexible scheduling around childcare and schooling. And then I think most importantly is we're doing very frequent feedbacks and surveys to find out how people are doing so that we can tweak programs and adjust accordingly. So lastly, in terms of engaging customers, one of the big efforts we went through, and it may be a surprise to folks, is we have a contact center that basically is spread throughout the world that was largely office-based and largely PC-based, about 2,800 employees. And so we had to shift to a completely virtual contact center and self-service, beef up our self-service offerings. We did that in about a 16-day period to shift all 2,800 employees to a secure remote operating environment. One of our Leading Through Change webinars was on that exact topic. So we shared a lot of the lessons learned that we went through in that process. But again, we're trying to put out, I think, an engagement with our customers and broader people in the community, crisis-relevant engagement and content. I think what we've done is added additional digital portals, which just have helped people understand some of the offerings that we've put out there around helping small businesses. We put out some free product offerings that I mentioned before around some innovation around Salesforce Care, which is just some additional solutions and templates that people can take advantage for free to try to help drive communication and response to the crisis. And I think the overarching aspect of this that I think is also important is like, what are we doing in the community? You may have heard through some of the news outlets that Salesforce has been very active in procuring personal protective equipment. We've procured over 60 million pieces of protective equipment around the world using our own money and using sources outside of the U.S., places like China, to bring those pieces of equipment to the most acutely affected areas around the world. We've also been very active in donations to frontline organizations, places like the World Central Kitchen. If you've seen the Tonight Show at Home, you'll see that highlighted that we're matching all of the gifts to the World Central Kitchen, which is an organization that's focused on feeding kids and elderly during this time. So we're doing a ton, just trying to help the communities that we live in to be more stable. And I think those two areas I mentioned before were the small business area, but also, which is we're doing not only programs to help them, but also doing small business grants. So we dedicated $5 million in small business grants to deploy to small businesses most affected by the crisis. So a lot of stuff going on with Salesforce to try to stabilize the environments and the communities we all work in. So now that we've kind of gotten through a lot of the stabilization, I know many folks are probably still in some level of stabilization today, trying to figure out how to continue to work in this climate. We're very focused around back to work. So as you can imagine, our planning model works very well in almost any kind of environment. So we went directly to having a separate back to work command center that's running in parallel to our crisis command center, that's built on the principles and the vision that we have for what's the near-term vision for our company going forward, and how do we get most of our people, especially the critical workers who do have an office-based need, getting them back to work. So we're trying to, that's very focused around things like logistics and planning and additional analytics around things as you might expect. How do I do health attestation remotely? How do I come up with a tracking and testing model and systems and products and tools? All of those things become part of the plan that we've got to come up with, and how do we share that with employees around what that plan looks like. So in addition to all the things that we're doing around visibility from our leadership team during the stabilization phase, we've added an additional layer of transparency around a back to work plan. We're trying to instrument all of that information, and certainly getting feedback from our employees as well as our customers who are we're continuously getting feedback during this time, even more so. So, and we look at the empowered employees, where we go with this going forward. Obviously, we're trying to optimize a completely remote workforce experience. Many of our groups have been remote work oriented for some time. Our enterprise sales organization, our engineering organization have a long time been remote workforces, but there are many other groups within our business that are not. And so how we build new tools and processes to allow them to be more effective at home. So we're enhancing some of our employee tools, some of our employee portal assets to just streamline and automate many processes that require a lot of approvals and various steps. We're also looking at different virtual meeting concepts outside of this year, sort of the standard video concepts that can make meetings more powerful and engaging with both employees and customers. And an area that we've really been spending a lot of time in, and it's a challenge that Mark Benioff himself made, was we have a learning management system here at Salesforce called Trailhead. And for those that know Salesforce, Trailhead is a free learning management system that we deploy to our customer-oriented communities for anyone who signed up for Salesforce. And so you can take courses that are very gamified based on a variety of topics, some of them very specific to Salesforce, some of them more just skill-based learning. And we apply that same Trailhead model in our internal learning management, and very much specific to our own business processes. So you can customize the same tools that we use and allow for more broadly for our internal purposes. But he's made a challenge to everyone in the organization to become a ranger. And a ranger is a level of someone who's done a certain number of badges. Badges equate to different trainings and different point values based on the badge. And so we're trying to basically upskill and rescale our entire sales organization, our entire Salesforce organization, with the idea in mind that by building up skills, it's going to give us a greater agility to shift resources around, as some of these processes have changed from being very physical based to very virtual based. So it's going to give us the ability to sort of optimize the diversity of how our employees can be deployed. As far as engaging customers, it's been a very interesting aspect. I think a lot of people have been struggling with this. So one of the things that's come down here in recent weeks is that Mark Benioff, our CEO, has issued the 1 million Zoom meetings challenge. So for those of you who don't know Zoom is a comparable technology to GoToMeeting, and is designed around obviously virtual meetings, webinars, and other things. So his point really in all of this is that our organization, our customer-facing organization, should be really there for our customers, prospects, and those in the community that we work in. And so he is really putting a stake in the ground to make sure that our employees are front and center around helping those customers in need, those customers that are trying to, transform some of the ways they do business based on some of the challenges, and then ultimately how we can help the local community that we serve in. So expect the idea that this reaching out will help us to create a bit more personalized, frictionless, what we call journeys, so engagements or experiences that our customers might have with us. So removing as much friction from a process to log cases, or if they're in need of additional technology, how do we do that with a very seamless process? And obviously, really, most of our products have been digital because we are a cloud-first company, but we do have acquisitions that we've made that are not, that we're realigning to make sure they are digitally available so that people can have the most easiest experience in dealing with us. And I think, we're obviously looking at new service channels, self-service channels, we call touchless experience channels, to further the process by which we support our customers and add value with how people are using our technology to solve problems they have. I think as I look at sort of how we're looking at back to work from a community perspective, we're really trying to decentralize decision-making to our local leaders in our different markets to figure out where our help could be used most. So for those that aren't aware, Salesforce was was the originator of what we call the 1-1-1 model, which we take 1% of our profits, 1% of our employees' time, 1% of our product, and we make use of that every year to nonprofit organizations and areas that are most in need. And so we're going to be doing more in our local environments to try to drive change and kind of help the communities, areas where people have the most challenges. So we've been a long-time supporter of the Dallas Independent School District. We'll continue to do that and look for other ways of helping out. We also are looking at how to extend some of our upskilling and reskilling methods and policies on how we deploy that to our broader trailhead community so that people in the community can actually upskill their own skills so that they are becoming more relevant and able to find jobs where maybe those jobs don't exist anymore. So those are some of the things we're thinking about. Obviously, if we look at how we get into the community and help, a lot of that in the past has been around volunteering. So we're shifting some of our volunteering around virtual volunteering. We're doing a lot of mentoring in organizations like VetForce, which is a Salesforce organization that's dedicated towards getting veterans and their families back in the workforce after leaving the military. We're also doing a lot of work with Career Village, which is a organization focused on helping kids, mentor kids through schooling and coming up with career aspirations and career paths. And so those are some examples of some of the areas that we're doubling down in to help in the community. And then lastly, I think all of us have recognized the importance of sustainability and the environment, some of the positive impacts of this crisis have had on the environment with the lack of travel. But how do we build a sustainability plan that can start to work even when we go back to work? So one of the areas that we've put some emphasis around recently is around the Trillion Tree Challenge, which is an organization focused on, as you might guess, planting 1 trillion trees to offset the emissions and carbon factors in the world, which can vastly lower our emissions outtake. So these are some of the things we're thinking about in sort of the medium term. As we get out hopefully get it back into a growth mindset and growth phase and get the economy moving even more rapidly, we're looking at and have established an office of transformation that is obviously looking at our transformation B2MOM. So we're trying to think about we reimagine how we do business today, all the business processes that we use internally, how those get deployed externally. How can we look at a new target digital operating model? And that's a big part of the effort that we're looking at. And how does that affect the way that our employees work? And do they need to be in a physical real estate environment that we have, or can we do more work from home? And so those are some of the things that we're doing to help in that area. Obviously, we need additional insights to help us understand market trends and other things that are going to be impacting those decisions. As we look at going forward with our employees, we're looking at a standardized global growth practices and policies that can be tweaked for each market, and trying to set up more personalized journeys for each employee in terms of their growth path, their skilling path, to bring maximum agility and redundancy in our business so that we can make sure all our employees are adding the most value. And then ultimately, and really deploying a lifelong learning and development mindset with all of our employees, which is built around continuous feedback and focused on areas that some of our employees care the most about, which is obviously their community, environment, some of those other goals. So as we look at the engagement with customers, even more so, as we've made a number of acquisitions over the years, we've gotten, I would say, in some cases, fragmented with how a customer perceives us. So we're doubling down on what we call our own Customer 360, which is a single source of customer that will be applied in any way that you do business with us so that we are more efficient across the touch points we have with our customers. And in the spirit of this, we're looking at new ways to reimagine how we do almost everything we do. So we think there will be new partnerships with different technology companies. We've done a lot of work with Google and AWS in the past. We see that work continuing. We've announced some additional partnerships with Apple and others in this tech space that will bring some new innovation and new methods of doing business to us in the future. And I think ultimately what we're trying to get to is trying to drive smarter, more personalized experiences in all the things that we do. So, and these will all be virtual, right? Today, we're doing a lot of work virtually to engage our customers through happy hours and coffee talks and all kinds of programs like those. But how do we do that at scale in a more personalized way that's relevant for executives and administrators and developers alike? And I think broadly, as we think about the community, we'll be continuing to triple down on our 1-1-1 model. And I think we'll triple down on sustainability for the long term. So we're highly invested in the UN's Sustainability Development Goals and meeting those and coming up with a net zero plan in the way that we work and the footprint that we have in our businesses and the markets we serve. So that is a bit of a plan of what we're doing. I referenced a few different programs and resources that we have been highlighting. We've got a whole small business resource environment that's focused on how to help folks get funding, how to help folks help with essential questions around small businesses. I mentioned the Be Well Together, Be Well Health and Wellness series that we've deployed, as well as some of the virtual events and web series. The Salesforce Care is, again, a set of product offerings and templates that we've offered up to folks to use in this time at no charge to help with communication and solving problems, specifically digital problems related to working from home. And then I mentioned the small business grants and some of the work we're doing there. So I hope this is helpful. Happy at this point to take questions. Certainly, your feedback and ideas are welcome. We don't own the market, as I mentioned, in great ideas, and we're learning a lot as we go as well. So love to get some feedback.
Thank you, Michael. Coming back online. So a couple of questions. I appreciate that. Wow, 2,800, trying to get 2,800 people online in 16 days. That had to be quite a feat, quite a success. So I know within our own organization, it has been challenging. So congratulations on that. So a couple of questions. I know that many of us are in sales-related organizations, and any insight into creative ways that Salesforce is trying to engage their customers. You know, we're inundated by requests and webinar, you know, and various things. So how is the sales organization having to shift to address to some of these high demands?
Yeah, I think that what we try to do is come up with creative ways to bring people together. So I think just from a relationship building perspective, we have been doing a lot of Uber Eats lunch meetings. We send out Uber Eats cards to our customers and then meet virtually, talk about some of the key things that they're thinking about. We've done a lot of happy hours where we send out a favorite bottle of wine, and we all sit around and we have a deep breath and talk about some of the things that are going on. We're also doing a lot of what I would call care kits. So just touches of gratitude, kits that help people get through the work from home experience. And some of those things I think have been pretty creative and pretty widely appreciated. I think as far as some of the executive roundtables, a lot of our executives have become more available in the sense that, our executives are making themselves available to talk to customers, and, how our head of HR is thinking about, wellness, and he's hosting roundtable discussions with folks. So we're really trying to build a broader network of connectivity with some of our executives and through our virtual events.
Very good. And then what about the travel industry? I know that Salesforce has a number of travel industry customers, as do many of our own, those of you on the phone. How are you seeing the travel industries interact?
Obviously, those are some of the most impacted companies that have been touched by this. So we're looking at how the best ways that we can help support them in the near term, and typically those are very specific asks around financial considerations for how they've been contracting with Salesforce, which we've been doing a lot of contract restructuring and deferrals and so on for folks most impacted by the impact. But we're also helping them. We've got an Office of Innovation that has a series of workshop programs that we are working with them collaboratively to come up with what their new normal is, and how we can help them envision that in a more streamlined way that will have a more positive impact once the economy comes back.
Great. All right, and then last question I have for you. I know that Salesforce has adopted DISD as a project for you, and then can you talk just a little bit about some of the things that you have been doing with DISD in our last minute?
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of the work we've been doing has been candidly more on site in some of the recent months before this crisis hit. So we do a lot of time investing in the schools, spending time with various teacher programs that have been launched where they are looking for outside volunteering. More recently, we've adopted many of their virtual programs. So many of the programs they're asking about is they have a real dire need for things like books. So we did a huge book campaign where we went out to the various lists that they had created on Amazon, and a ton of our employees went out and bought a bunch of books to basically deliver to the Dallas Independent School District and then have it deployed to students more broadly. So we're trying to do little things where needed that they've come to us and we've been able to respond quickly.
Okay, that's great. So thank you so much, Michael, for today.
Yeah.
Paula for kicking us off, and we appreciate everybody joining us. And hope you have a great weekend. Don't forget to join us next week for part 2 of Terry Sullivan. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, guys. Bye.